In Pattaya, Thailand, two boys aged 13 and 8 go into an internet cafe. Another boy their age approaches them in a friendly manner and tells them that he has a friend who has a computer in his apartment which has all the games they could ever imagine installed on it. The boys eagerly followed this other boy to his apartment. When they arrived, they did not find a computer filled with video games. Instead, they found a monster in the disguise of a man. Years later, this same man would become one of the biggest predators in existence, Mr. Swirl. In 2004, the German police entered a completely forgotten storage unit. In it, they found machines and a hard drive which contained many images, including CP. The images showed depraved acts toward minors, in which different children could be distinguished. In most cases of CP, those who commit the abuse go to great lengths to hide their identity. However, the man responsible for these photos did everything possible to appear in all of the photos. He would put a spiral effect on his face and pixelate it. This man was clearly a serial abuser. Tracking this anonymous figure became a priority for the police. The effect he used to distort his face became very difficult to decipher. It was even thought to be impossible to discover his identity. The pixels had been coded in such a unique way that there was no known method to decipher it. Anyone would think that reversing the swirl would show his face. However, when this was done, only a skin-colored spot with no facial features was shown. The German agency requested the help of Interpol. Interpol began to work to decipher the photos, this time trying to find clues or the context in which they were taken to track where and when they were taken. This presented a problem, as they discovered the photos were taken in Cambodia, Vietnam, Thailand, and South Korea. This made the investigation much broader, as they realized this man was traveling between countries, committing his crimes, making his capture all the more difficult. It was eventually discovered that Mr. Swirl's photos were also appearing on online forums, which he himself posted to groups with people who had the same sick taste as him, making him a much-loved member of their community. In one of these posts, Mr. Swirl made a mistake by revealing his IP address. It was in Vancouver, Canada, and this clue made it clear that this man was a sex tourist who had a link to Vancouver. This gave a lot of hope to the investigation team, who continued to work hard to solve the case. The agency believed that Mr. Swirl's face could still be found if the swirl effect he used was deciphered. One of the agents noticed that one of the images of Mr. Swirl did not have the same usual effect. By putting this image into an editing program, he was able to reverse the effect and reveal the true face of Mr. Swirl, although this happened 3 years later. But eventually, Mr. Swirl's face was found. Interpol sent the photo of this man to all the police stations that had access to the network. They realized that this man had no criminal record. Time was of the essence, so Interpol made an unprecedented decision by contacting every media outlet around the world and asking them to show this man's face in their broadcast in order to bring this predator to justice. In addition to this, his face was shown in every corner of the internet, and Mr. Swirl's face went from being totally anonymous to being everywhere. Mr. Swirl, or Christopher Neal, was eventually found in Thailand. He was working as an English teacher in a school for children, a job he had obtained in each of the countries where he was discovered to be operating. At the moment he realized authorities were finally onto him, he had been working as a teacher in South Korea. He decided to flee to Thailand, where the authorities finally managed to corner him in a house in the middle of nowhere. The authorities could only accuse him of what happened in the cyber cafe and sentence him to 5 years. However, they were waiting for him to be taken to the different countries where he could be judged. Eventually, he was taken to Canada, where he was set free. Since Neal's crimes were not committed on Canadian soil and none of the victims came forward to testify against him, Canada released him on the condition that he could not have access to any internet-enabled device and also not work in schools. However, in 2013, Neal bought a computer with which he was able to connect to the internet. Neal used the device to communicate with his sick community and share more images under his pseudonym, Mr. Swirl. Neal did not seem at all remorseful for all the acts that he had committed. In fact, he seemed proud of them, even using the phrase, "Mr. Swirl is still alive." A friend of his taught him how to share these photos on the deep web and share these photos in an untraceable way, allowing him to remain active in these groups where he was adored for being a sicko. Christopher was eventually arrested, and this time they managed to lock him up for a measly 5 years plus time served, meaning he only spent 14 actual months in prison. Prosecution took it as a victory, and Christopher vowed to turn his life around. In 2016, the man responsible for 24 cases of child abuse was released and is now a free man living in Vancouver. So what do you think of the sicko, guys? Should he still be in prison, or do you think that the Canadian law is correct in letting him run free for some reason? Let us know in the comments below, and as always, if you have a story of yours you would like to share, or just a story in general, feel free to shoot us an email at dragonvin@gmail.com and we will take a look at it. As always, thanks for watching and have a great night.